Um, we are, my goal over the next hour is to spend probably about 25 minutes and just give you a little bit more background about SDM, a little more details about the educational requirements, the programs, some of the profiles of the students. And then we are, I'm thrilled to have a few of our students here joining us. And my hope is that you'll be able to use some of the second half of the time that we've got to be able to ask questions, because I think the best information that you may get as you consider graduate programs is hearing from the students themselves about their experiences, what brought them here, and kind of how they're able to leverage SDM. So we'll kick off. Thank you for joining us. SDM is actually, let me introduce myself first. And I was just joking as I got started that I'm working with a student on thesis that he's working on, and he's working on understanding how engineering teams, how effective they are with interruptions and breaks during the day. And one of the things they talked about is late afternoon is oftentimes not great time for people's brains. So you're getting me when my time of day when my brain isn't so great. But my name is Joan Rubin. I'm the executive director for the System Design Management Program. SDM is System Design and Management, and it's a little bit of a unique offering at MIT. We are what's considered to be a professional master's degree, in that it doesn't lead on to a PhD, but the SDM is the degree that terminates for people to go back into industry. It's jointly offered by the School of Engineering here at MIT and MIT Sloan School of Management. The degree that you get when you graduate is a Master of Science in Engineering and Management. It's not an engineering management degree specifically, but it's a degree that deep dives into both engineering and management through the respective schools. The program started about 28 years ago now, and it was a partnership between MIT and industry. Industry came to us and said, we're dealing with more and more complexity in the types of programs and projects that we're developing. We have to think about connections and systems. And so they came to us and asked if we could help in building expertise in creating systems capabilities for their employees. Originally, we were strictly for company-sponsored students, but it's evolved over the years to be a broader program that we're really seeing people come in from multiple different industries, backgrounds, all sharing that same need to be able to think about problems from a systems perspective. Our goal is to help you become capable and be able to lead large-scale complex projects. We are seeing people that have come through earlier in the program that are now CEOs, CTOs of large organizations. And our goal is to be able to set up this as a career compatible degree. I'll talk a little bit about that because it is not an online degree. It differs from what you may see from other programs that have a pure online presence. We do require students to spend some time here at MIT. But we were the first foray for MIT to be able to offer this idea of a degree granting distance program. I think one of the best ways to get a little bit of a flavor for the program is to hear from students. And I'm going to play a little bit of video, Marcel. I think it gives you some great perspective on SDM and the program from her eyes.
As an engineer, I'm trained to be a problem solver, and now I've learned a new way to solve problems, and it's pretty fun. It's almost like a puzzle with strings, because if you move the piece that's over in this corner, it may pull the piece that's in this other corner, and you had no idea they were connected. And that's the beauty of systems, to understand these relationships between all these pieces. My name is Marcel Durenberger, and I'm a third-year SDM, which is System Design and Management master's student at MIT. System design and management is a blend of engineering and management. So we split our credits between the engineering school and the management school. It is a bit more engineering heavy, and we do have business represented as well, but we also have doctors that come in. We have geologists that come in, people from energy related industries. We have consumer products, we have automotive, we have aerospace, we have military. We really have a bit of everything. And I think that also is a huge part of SDM. to have that diversity of thought, and you learn how to adapt to your different groups, adapt to different cultures. You have people in different time zones, so you're learning how to navigate that as well. And you can do it in so many different ways. There are people who come in as sponsored from their companies and do it very quickly. There are people who are sponsored who do it in a pretty standard 1.5 to 2 years. Yeah. There's a group of people who do remote with clauses to get on campus on certain times. And then you have the part-time folks. I was able to blend starting part-time and then going full-time. There are a few of us who do that. So core is the first year for every system design and management student. So in the fall, you're all learning a common language, the core foundation of what systems thinking is. System architecture usually leads the front, and then you have system engineering, and then you have project management. And you're applying these to pretty simple problems. So first in the fall, you're like, okay, we're getting this new language, we're seeing how it applies, but these problems don't seem particularly complex. And that's the point, because you need to build on it. So what happens is you have a winter session, 1 week in January, where everyone comes on campus and you are all in a room, you're doing workshops, and you actually get pitched projects from 40 plus sponsors. And these projects have all been filtered by the program to really help you practice all the knowledge you now have. And then you go into the spring semester and you apply it to a much more complex project. So that complexity builds across the core class, and then it culminates in how do you actually take this method of systems thinking and apply it in your workplace, or however you need to use them. Being a teaching assistant for the core class, it's actually really fun to see other people wrestle with the questions that you wrestled with, and then slowly have the puzzle pieces like click in their heads. The project work brings you closer. The whirlwinds nature of the program brings you closer. And then all of a sudden you have this really special community. I think we come here because we want to do better. We want to elevate something that you think can improve. And this is an opportunity to learn the tools and meet the people that have a similar curiosity and drive to make a difference.
So I want to step back a little bit from what Marcel was talking about and go back to what we were founded on. What was the original mission of the program? And Tom Magnanti was the founding co-director. He's still involved at times with the program. And I think his phrase captures best what this program is. And it's a program for those who want to lead, not leave engineering. So it's not necessarily an MBA for someone who wants to go into private equity. It's really for someone who embraces the technology, embraces the engineering skills, and wants to be the person who leads organizations in the future. And so that's reflected in the mission statement itself, is to educate future technical leaders in architecting, engineering, and designing complex products and systems, preparing them for careers as technically grounded senior managers of their enterprises. And so think about whether that reflects where you want to be and what you want to do, because it isn't a traditional engineering degree. It's not a traditional business degree. It really does fall somewhere in between. So when we talk about the idea of systems thinking, I think that there are people who are very comfortable with the idea of systems engineering and system architecture. And there's other people that want to grasp at these things that are connected. And I think the way we would describe systems thinking is this idea of a holistic way of looking at something in a way of learning. So it's not, you don't necessarily take something apart and figure out how to build that piece, but you're thinking about relationships and connections and how things connect and tie together. And it's really looking at some of those dynamic nature of those connections. How do they change as one of those pieces change? What's that feedback loops? What's the complexity? And as you think about complexity of products and services today, having those skills to be able to think about how they connect to other things and design to optimize as a system is really critical. We offer 2 different options for programs that you join here. The program that I'm primarily talking about today is the master's degree program, which is a traditional Master of Science degree here at MIT. And that's comprised, and we'll talk in a little bit more details of this core class that Marcel talked about, but it also includes management electives, engineering electives, and a thesis that you need to write on a topic that relates to something that you've learned. We also offer a certificate program. This is a significant commitment. It is not just a 1 week, take an online class certificate, but our certificate students are actually taking that same graduate class as our master's degree students do, that core class sequence. They're in the same class. They're on teams together. They are getting a typical MIT graduate transcript. They just don't fulfill the electives that are required for the degree. Someone who takes the certificate takes the core course, and then they wrap up with a capstone project in the summer that gets a chance for them to apply what they've learned in the core to a project or challenge that they have in their workplace specifically, and a chance to test out and try what they've learned on something in their own home environment. Where do we sit at MIT? And I think it's important to look, we've talked a little bit about the fact that we're joint between the School of Management and the School of Engineering. And by being joint with those two programs, you get access to the resources of those schools. So if we start in the top right corner, in the School of Engineering, you have the ability to pursue classes in any of the departments in the engineering school. As long as you have the prerequisite background, you can jump in on classes. You aren't restricted to a single department or a single discipline in engineering. You really pick and choose what it is that is going to be appropriate for your learning and where you want to go. You have access to research labs. You have access to group activities that are happening within the departments. You are a student of the School of Engineering. Similarly, in the Sloan School of Management, there are conferences, there's research, there's clubs, there are action learning labs and activities, and you are a student of Sloan, you get access to those co-curricular activities at Sloan. But outside of the more traditional school environments, there also is a culture at MIT of innovation and entrepreneurship. The building that we're located in on campus, the first floor of it is actually the Martin Center for Entrepreneurship. And so our students and every student on campus has access to participate in this ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship. And we have a number of students each year that go on to start their own company or join on with a team that's looking at a new idea and looking to get that off the ground. We recognize that the vast majority of our students are going to leave SDM and they're going to go back into industry. And so we want to keep that connection close. We want to make sure that what you're learning is relevant to what you're going to be bringing back into industry. And so we have guest lecturers that come in. We have sponsored research. We have spring projects that are real world problems that industry brings in. And it's a chance to be able to keep that connection and understand how what you're learning connects back to the bigger world outside. In terms of our students, we try very hard through the admissions process to make sure that we have the same kind of diversity that you'll see when you get back into your work environment. Oops, sorry about that. After you leave. And so students on average have about 8 to 10 years of professional experience. We do require that students come in with real world experience. If you have a bachelor's degree, we ask that you have 5 years of experience. If you have an advanced degree, a master's or a PhD or a MD degree, it's 3 years of experience. The reason for that is that a lot of what you learn, it requires that ability to connect and understand how this is going to be applicable back in the real world. And so that professional experience is really critical to be able to understand and contribute back to class. The cohort comes from a lot of industries. If you look back at our founding about 27 years ago, we were primarily aerospace and heavy machinery, automotive, some large scale industrial manufacturing, but it's expanded. And now we see students come in from healthcare and finance and aviation and energy, really from every different background. And it's important to us as we bring a cohort together and start to create that class through the admissions process, that variation is there, because you're going to learn as much from the person sitting next to you in class as you are from the faculty at the front of the room. About half of our students, roughly, have either a partial or full sponsor by their company. It's not a requirement. It's actually not something that we look at as part of the admissions process. It's those are the students that tend to come through on the other side. As you heard from Marcel, about 20 to 30% are local commuters in any given year. MIT and Cambridge is really the hub of a lot of technology. There is Google and Microsoft and Takeda and pharmaceutical companies all within about 2 blocks of the campus. And so there are students that set up that they work full time, but they take time during their day to come to class, and those are our commuters. About half are here from the US, and I'll show you on the next graph a little bit of an idea of where people come from. But that means that half of our students come from around the globe. And so this will give you a little bit of a perspective here of the backgrounds of where our students come from. There is representation from around the world. It's heavier in North America and Asia, but we do have students that come from locations from just about every continent. Typically, we have every populated continent, but this year we didn't get an Australian student, but we typically will see that. I mentioned the fact that there's different work requirements if you have a bachelor's degree and master's degree. Again, about half the students come in with a bachelor's degree, and that's welcomed. But about half also come further in their career. They have a master's degree, a PhD, an MD. We've had a lawyer in the past. And I think the common thread between all of these students is they've hit a point in their career where they've recognized that to advance, they need to understand the systems connectivity. They want to lead a large scale team, and they want to understand how to do this effectively. And that's the point in their career typically where they step back and come back to school here at MIT. This is just a quick word cloud to give you an idea of the types of industries that people come from. And you'll be able to see that there are some overlaps here that you see. Manufacturing systems may also overlap with industrial systems or heavy industry. It's whatever the student identified as their background in industry. In the fact that we have in the vicinity of about 90 to 95 total students in the core, you can see from the fact that there are 20 or 25 different industries here, there's a lot of different backgrounds represented. I want to dig into the core a little bit more because the core is the foundation of the program, and it really is what differentiates us from more traditional engineering or management programs. And so the core is a full year course. It runs in the fall semester, in January, and in the spring. So you'll start it in August and you'll wrap it up in May. It carries 15 credit units per semester. For those of you that have come out of a traditional US type of university, 15 units may seem ridiculously high. And let me explain the MIT credit unit system. At MIT, you get a unit for an hour of work per week. So a 15 credit unit course, the expectation is that you're going to spend approximately 15 hours a week on that class. And so the SDM core is 15 hours of your time, and that's a combination of in-class, recitation work, and out-of-class work that you do throughout the year. We focus on this idea of a broad and deep education. As Marcel explained, we touch on topics in the fall to be able to get everybody to a common language. And then we come back and we start to build capabilities and skills to be able to use these tools, use these approaches, capping off in the spring with having a corporate sponsored project where you don't work for the company, but you get a chance to use their data and their information to be able to work on a real world problem. And it gives you a chance to test out what you've learned and learn how effective it is in different situations. So class is not just simply going and sitting in a classroom every day. There's a combination of people that come in, presentations by faculty, projects, individual assignments. It really is trying to help you learn by picking out a number of different approaches to be able to tap into how you learn. I'm going to play one more video. It's about the same length. It's just a couple minutes long. And this is Dr. Brian Mosier. Brian is the lead instructor for our core. And Brian's going to talk a little bit more about the core and how this comes together. I'm going to try and play that again.
Today, being an engineer is very exciting. We're going through an energy transition. We have new computation, new classes of automation and robotics. Hardware and software are back. At the same time, what's happening in medicine, precision agriculture, carbon reduction. All these transitions are happening, which means that there's so many new combinations, new opportunities that rising engineers can address. SDM is a program in the graduate schools of engineering and the Sloan School of Management at MIT. It offers both a master's degree in engineering and management, as well as a certificate in the same. Our students are at mid-career. We have students from agriculture, from energy, biotech, health, aerospace, from automotive, from governments and military in one classroom. If we looked at curriculum a century ago, each of the separate disciplines was establishing their own first laws and their own disciplinary principles. Today, the engineering problems we're working on are connected. That is, we can't separate the subsystem we're working on from the system it connects to. And that connected system lives in an ecosystem that includes other systems. So the engineering leader now not only must help coordinate and make trades amongst the engineering disciplines, but we must be capable of also interacting, having dialogue, having conversations with stakeholders, economists, regulators, lawyers, sociologists, ethnographers. So that becomes a central part of what an engineering leader for complex systems problems must deal with. But let's start with the core, because the core is really unique. We teach this class over 9 months. With every few weeks, we spiral through system architecture, system engineering, and project management. These are 3 capabilities that an engineering leader, especially for complex modern projects, has to have. Students are involved in hundreds of hours of activity, including 300 hours of team-based projects. We invite outside organizations, both companies and governments, to propose a problem. Students begin by simply trying to frame the problem. They then take that and understand it and decompose that system and understand how it might perform and function with different options and different approaches. And then they also think about what it means to then take this proposed system into the real world. The significant peer learning. Then there's also now a new vocabulary, a new way of seeing the world as systems, and a whole toolkit of methods that people learn. After the core, there are foundation classes tied to systems, both in engineering and in management. It's also now important, heading towards a thesis, to explore. While at MIT, it's such an amazing place. It's like being a kid in a candy store. There's so many interesting classes, interesting activities. And so the electives give one a chance to shape one's own degree. And thesis is an important ultimate expression of the journey they've been on as a student, advised by a faculty member or a professional researcher. And typically it's a one-on-one dialogue over at least 6 months. What's always amazing to me is to see how a student evolves leading up to the topic in their thesis, which could be groundbreaking, maybe something they could never have anticipated when they entered. And an important part of the experience in being here at MIT is permitting that discovery, being open-minded, being diligent, interacting a ton, then allowing for the discovery and the shaping, whether it's a new technique, a new method, a new company that might emerge from the time here.
So Brian talked a little bit about this idea of depth classes and elective classes, and I want to just summarize it so you've got an idea of what the curriculum looks like in total. So the integrated core that we talked about, 36 units. What we ask you to do is to take a depth class in both the engineering and management side. Basically, on the engineering side, we want to have you to take a concept that was introduced in the core. Maybe it's system safety, maybe it's system dynamics, and dig deep into a engineering class that takes that topic further. Engineering classes are typically 12 units. Most depth classes on the engineering side is a single class. On the management side, it's still the same idea, but it's a little bit different. Most of our students don't come in with formal training in business or management. And so the idea of a depth class in management is really taking and grabbing a couple of classes that a typical MBA student would have as their foundational learning in business. And so it may be marketing, it may be operations, it may be an analytics course, but it's something that'll give you a chance to take what all MBA students take. Management classes are usually 6 or 9 units, and so to satisfy that requirement on the management side typically takes 2 classes. And then we open up the MIT catalog. There are literally hundreds of courses in engineering and about 150 courses in the management school that you have the choice to pick and choose to make up those remaining elective credits. So you need a minimum of 15 elective units in engineering and a minimum of 15 in management. And really what it is your degree is going to look different from the person sitting next to you. We ask you to give thought to what are those gaps? What are those things that you need to make you an effective leader? And some people may come in with a significant amount of leadership. They may be military and have led large teams of soldiers. Other people may come in and really want to be able to dig into something like analytics and help understand that because they feel that's essential for them to fill out their background. So your set of courses, your curriculum, you'll all share that integrated core. And then once you get out of the core, it's going to be really what it takes for you to be effective in your next stage in your leadership as a future leader. The thesis, as Brian mentioned, is typically done in the last couple of semesters that you're here, and it's a chance to bring that together on a topic that is of interest to you. We help you find an advisor, we help you find a faculty member to work with, but it's really up to you to shape and to build that topic that you want to work for on. And so the credits that you see on the side, 114 in total is what it takes to get to the degree. Most people complete the degree in a year and a semester or 2. It can be done in a single year, although the course load and the workload is extremely high. And so that's a trade-off that you would have to make. This recaps the same information I just gave, and it talks about the number of courses. And so on the management foundation side, there's actually about 20 courses now that can be chosen from. On the engineering depth, it's about 12 courses you can pick, and it's pick one of those. And then it's the rest of the catalog for those electives. The only other piece, and I just realized it was at the bottom, is that you are welcome to take additional courses beyond the minimum of 114. What we ask is that because we are jointly sponsored between Sloan and the School of Engineering, that by the time you finish your degree, that you are basically balanced on the units out of the engineering and the management school. So within 12, which is a single class between the two, you're expected to balance your courses. Marcel talked about being a commuter student, and we have students that live and work in the Boston area that commute to campus. But we have different ways of students attending as well. Of course, there's the option to be on campus full-time, and it's usually about half to 2/3 of our students are full-time on campus. We also have students that are distance, and it's typical that their first year that they would be remote, they would take the core class their first year, and then come to campus at some point during their degree. It's typically in the fall or the spring of their second year to be able to complete curriculum that they need to complete on campus. There are a few classes that are offered at a distance beyond the core, not a lot. Management classes almost exclusively need to be taken on campus. And so if you were going to be a distance student planning a single semester on campus, we'll work with you very closely from the time that you're admitted to help plan that out and make sure that you can fit that together. And I know that for our students on the panel, you'll be able to ask. Both Rita and Dax have started as distance and have come to campus, and so they can talk about their experiences. You saw a little bit in the videos, and this shows you a snapshot of the classroom. Students are expected to be synchronous when they attend at a distance, and so they're participating in class while class is happening. You see it on the board, the screen on the left there, which is the students that are somewhere else around the globe. The synchronous part, we have students participate during the lecture. It's not a matter of just log on, listen to the video later and run it at double speed. You're expected to be part of it, participating and engaged. The as it mentions here on the slide, there is no option for a completely distance degree. You have to plan to be on campus for a minimum of a single semester. I think what you'll find from students, and again, I would encourage you to ask, particularly Rita on this one, when we get into the Q&A, is, you know, the difference and what it means to be on campus and how that's a different experience for you being on campus from a distance student. I'm realistic. A lot of the reasons that you're coming to MIT is not only for the type of education you're getting, but for what it may do for you career-wise in the long run. This is the employment data from a year ago, 2023, and we count kind of those that have graduated from January to December, and then we give 6 months after they've graduated to compile this data. We have, over the past number of years, had 100% of our students employed within 6 months of graduation. You get a chance here, on average, there was a 70% increase between their starting salary and where it was, but you can see the range here. That, you know, there are students that have been in careers that are international and the pay scales are different. They have seen increases, but oftentimes it's different from somebody who came in with a higher salary and position. Oftentimes it changes. So I would say don't just simply look at the high and assume you're going to get that. You know, be realistic about where you are and what this may be able to do. But on average, the incoming student had a mean salary of just under $100,000. And last year, the mean starting salary, and this is without bonuses and stock options, the mean starting salary on graduation was just under 165,000. This is a snapshot of the employers. This isn't everybody, but I do know that people look to say, is the kind of company I might want to work for a place that students have gone? And so this gives you the information. We do have a employment section on our website. And so there's information on the website as well that you can dig into this a little bit further. And then lastly, this is not a cultivated list of job titles. We literally went through and just wrote down the job titles of our students when they left. And so it'll also give you the idea of the types of jobs our students take as the next step in their career. This is the next job after graduating. My final kind of talk before I turn it over to the students is just to give you an idea. I've talked already about the fact that we feel it's absolutely critical to be able to stay connected to industry, to government, while you're here as a student, as well as on your next step out. And so companies are involved at every step of the way. Companies, as I mentioned before, do sponsor students, but they also sponsor internships. They bring in core course projects, and they have people in the company that are there to answer questions and help guide the teams. They host site visits. We do a tech trek. We do a couple of tech treks. We do 3 major treks a year, and we go to Japan through the IDJ, Innovation Discovery Japan. We go to the Bay Area, and we also have students that go to the Netherlands as part of these site visits. We do a number of local treks in the Cambridge area. And in fact, this coming Friday, 2 days from now, we're going to be going to MITRE Corporation here in the Boston area. Next week, we're going to Commonwealth Fusion. And so we take advantage of being in a hub of activity and bring students to local companies as well. We bring people from industry in for guest lectures. And then company and industry sponsors research. So students have been able to find research jobs with sponsored research related to SDM. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a snapshot. We're all here to answer questions, but before we jump to Q&A, I want you to hear from our students, and I would love to have our students give a really brief introduction. If you could talk about where you're from and the type of industry you're from, and then anything that may be of note for students or prospective students to latch onto, you know, whether you started remote, whether you've been on campus, some of the things that may be unique about your background. Rita, you are the one that's front and center on my screen, and I would love to have you be the first person to do an introduction here.
For sure. Is my audio clear? Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Rita Ugandan Taylor. I'm originally from Nigeria, and I am a class of 2023. So I resumed the SDM program in the fall of 23. Joan earlier mentioned I started remotely, and then I came in person spring of 24. So I've been in the US fully since the beginning of this year. So I have a little bit of experience learning from a distance, and I can speak to that. And then I have a different perspective being here for a couple of months now. I came from the energy industry. I worked in oil and gas before coming here, and I was a program manager, and I worked from the consulting point of view. So basically helping operators in oil and gas come up with some of the solutions to their problems. And that was where SDM was really valuable to me. Had some challenges navigating the complexities of proposing solutions, cost overruns, as you know it to be. So SDM has been able to bridge that gap between what I was doing and where I saw myself in the future. At the moment, I'm a second year SDM, and where I am right now as a student is I'm currently recruiting for an internship for summer of 25. So that's also another experience that I can speak to. I'm going through it at the moment. So it's not like I'm going through it at the moment, so I can speak to the opportunities that we have available to us. I hope I've been able to give you a good foundation about and the sort of questions you can bring my way. Thank you.
Thanks, Rita. Ben, do you mind giving a quick intro?
Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Arocho. I am a first-year SDM student. I started this fall in 2024. My background is in the maritime industry. I spent about 5 years doing operations and another 5 years doing field and system engineering, primarily on electronics and IT systems. I came in to the SDM program really looking to focus on some knowledge gaps that I felt I had, and the SDM program to me felt like it met those needs. I'm a full-time student shooting to complete in approximately 24 months. Like Rita, I'm also looking for internships right now. So going through that process. Happy to share and answer any questions regarding my background.
Thanks, Ben. And our third student panelist here today is Dax. Dax, do you mind jumping on and giving a quick background?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dax. I have a background in energy, defense, and systems engineering. I started as a certificate student and transferred over to the master's program this past August. I am fully remote, and I'm also working full-time. And I'm planning on moving to the Boston area and completing my on-site semester next fall of 25. I am interested in the intersection of project management and systems engineering and how to do both well. And SDM's really started to help fill in some of those gaps for me, and I'm excited to continue on the program. I got a good taste of it in the certificate program, and I wanted more. So here I am in the master's program, and I look to finish sometime in May of 26.
Thank you so much to the three of you. And we have a few of our staff members, and I want to just give a quick shout out to Amal Ilalam. And if you are applying or in the process of applying or thinking about it, Amal is our admissions manager. She's the one that runs all of the pieces that run it for admissions. And so she's here to answer questions as well. But we also have a few other staff members that are helping answer questions on the chat in the background. And so I'll throw it over Julie or Ignacio or Naomi. Is there any questions that we should bounce out to the bigger group? And I would also say, if you're listening and you have questions, raise your hand or jump in as well, because we really want to have you have a chance to make sure that you've got the background you need to make this decision.
Hello, John. Can you hear me?
I can. Please go
All
ahead.
right. So a couple of things. Dax, you wanted more? We'll give you more. So that's one thing. The other thing is that I want to acknowledge that there are a couple of people with a last name Vasquez, which I appreciate in the group. So kudos to you. So there are a few questions in terms of experience. What is the experience of people who are admitted into the program? And I think that's an interesting question for the panel, not only for your own experience prior to applying, but also what would you say are patterns on admitted students? What do they have in common?
Do you want to pick anybody out specifically on that, Ignacio?
I'm
or
not going
you
to
can
call
jump?
anybody out. No, I'm being inclusive.
Joan, I think the question was mainly on the admission side, like who do
Okay.
we accept? So
Oh,
maybe
okay,
you can
okay.
give.
I
Yep.
thought Ignacio was pointing that towards the panel. I didn't want to jump in.
I was.
So in terms of
Oh,
experience,
they can add to how the cohort is when they hear, but I've noticed it was mainly if I'm qualified to apply.
so we get a lot of different backgrounds and we have a lot of different experience. I think what's most critical for us is that you can show the connection with systems, that you've had enough work experience that's able to help us understand why a systems-based degree is important for you. Like I said, we are not an MBA. We are not a full master of engineering. We sit at that intersection. And so when we look at candidates, we want to understand how this fits in both with where your past experience is and where you're going. So the successful applicants for us are ones that take advantage of the essay prompt to be able to help us understand, why is this program a fit? It's very important that you know, the students we have, and I think Rita and Dax and Ben, as they explain backgrounds, you know, they've all got backgrounds where understanding the systems connection is important. And that's something that's critical for us. In terms of experience, we like a bell curve experience. We take people who have 3 to 5 years that are on the young side of their career. And I tell you that when you're on a team with them, sometimes it's nice to have someone who had calculus just a couple of years ago. We also have people who are in their 40s and approaching 50, and their leadership and their experience in industry can be an incredible asset to a team. So having that balance is really good. We don't have a strong preference for one side or the other. So I think if you feel the fit with systems, you know, feel free to pursue it a little further. Ignacio, we have a hand raised, so I'm going to jump over to Dami. Dami, please feel free, if I hope I pronounced that right, please feel free to unmute and ask the question.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you. This is my, I think, third time joining Ignacio, John, and Amal. I find these sessions super helpful. So thank you for, facilitating these. So I think my question is about the spring semester. I'm a little interested in learning a little bit about the project. I think it's the integrated team project is what it's called. Just, when I think about systems thinking, I'd like to think it's somewhat domain agnostic. While I have a certain career path that I'm on right now, I'm a little interested in learning about the project. Is it one project? Is it multiple? Do students have the autonomy to choose what they want to get involved in? What type of examples could you share? Just any type of insights that you might be able to offer on this would be very helpful.
So I would love to start with Dax and Rita, if you don't mind giving a quick overview, because you've been through this fully. Ben, I'm going to keep you out on this one because you haven't had a chance to go through the project yet. But Dax and Rita, if you can give a kind of a top level view of the project that you were on and the process of choosing it, it would be great.
Sure, I'll go first. It was really a great experience because I got to apply what we learned the previous semester, right? So this is not just theory. We get to see both the limitations and the strengths of what we were taught and really pushing it to its limits. I think putting it together in that applied sense is really what distinguishes this program from others, because you're not just reading, you're not just learning about it in a book or being taught by a professor. You get to figure it out for yourself how it actually works in a real world project. And I found that very valuable.
What project were you on, Dax?
I was working on the renewable energy storage for offshore wind farms.
Excellent. Rita, can you talk a little bit about your project and what you worked on?
So in the beginning of spring, we have this workshop, and we have companies come through with pitches to speak to us about different challenges that are currently going on in their organization. So it's not a dummy project. It's actually something that provides value back to the organization. And to speak to, when you say you have a specific career path, you can choose project that, feed back into your growth. For me, I was coming from oil and gas, and Chevron was pitching a project on clean energy and how they are thinking of transitioning. And that was very interesting to me. So I picked a project with Chevron to figure out how do we transition from non-renewables to renewable energy. So that was something that was really interesting. We spent the next 3 months figuring it out. We had sponsors, we had scheduled calls, we had check-ins. So just an overall answer is yes, you have variety of projects to pick from, cuts across different industry. You're most likely to find something adjacent. If you don't find something directly what you're hoping for, something adjacent, and it provides a learning opportunity. Yeah.
Thanks, Rita. And I'm actually going to call on you, Ignacio, if you don't mind, and I'm going to do a quick introduction. Ignacio, who spoke a minute ago, Ignacio is our industry director and certificate director. So he's the one that is actually working with industry to bring in these projects for January. And if you can talk a little bit, Ignacio, about what the process looks like, so prospective students can understand what this means to have this project.
Of course. So, sorry, wait. I'm answering 3 questions at the same time. So what is this, a spring project?
So spring projects, how do you
Yes.
find the company? How do you source the companies? What kinds of projects are they bringing in?
Excellent. No problem. So every year, I find north of 50 different organizations to propose projects that are relevant for the learning that happens during the first year in the core. From this pool of 50, we select around 30 separate organizations from all over the world, and many of them actually fly to Cambridge to pitch their projects on the first week of classes in 2025, which this academic year is going to be on January 6th. Students select 20 or so, more or less, projects that they are going to be working on individually for the next 4 to 5 months. So some of the projects that we have had in the past come from organizations like Amazon Robotics, Boston Dynamics, Shell, Chevron, the Harvard Observatory. We have had also governments like the government of Japan. We have had the Super Maglev, a Japanese rail company. We have had fusion reactors, quantum computing. What all of these things have in common is we select them for their potential to apply the things that you are learning in the classroom. And the companies make a commitment or governments, for about 4 or 5 months to interact with the students and provide information, provide context, so that then you can use this to work on your class. You do not need to select something that you are an expert on. So if you want to explore, I'm a mechanical engineer and I would like to learn more about biology, go with it. If you are a physicist and you want to go for the plasma project, perfect. So this is an opportunity to explore. It is possible that some of these interactions actually turn into things like internships or additional projects, or just an overall networking opportunity. I have no idea if I answered the question.
No, this is super high level. I appreciate that. Very helpful. I think I'm good for now though. Thank you,
Thanks,
Ignacio.
Damian. Thank you for joining us. I always get a little bit concerned when people have seen me over and over again. So hopefully you get something beneficial out of this.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm gonna bug Julie and Ignacio again. And I know Ignacio just went back to look at the list. Are there any other questions that are bubbling that would be useful to hear a little bit more color about based on the types of questions?
So there are a few questions about the courses that are available both in Sloan and School of Engineering, and how is that different, for example, with MBA programs. So I'm not sure, Rita, Ben, Dax, which courses do you find interesting, or which ones are you following? How are you making that decision? What can you tell us about electives?
Rita, why don't you jump on this one first?
For sure. It's a lot of figuring out based on interest. But what I have found is there's so much value in going towards what you don't know and how much you can learn in such a short time. There's this they use for MIT, which is the fire hose. It is a lot of content, a lot of knowledge. You almost feel like you're drowning in knowledge, but it's a good thing because somehow you're making it and, you're growing in this aspect that, you never thought you would grow. There's a lot of diversity in engineering to choose courses from. So you have courses in energy, courses in mechanical, courses in machine learning, which is a thing right now that everyone wants to grow in. So it really depends on how well you want to learn. You'll definitely find something that cuts across your interest. I think if I were to give one tip, I would say leaning towards what you don't know rather than what you have a background in. That's my take.
Thanks, Rita. Dax, I know that we always get questions, and Joseph, I see you on, if you can hold for 1 second. Dax, I want to follow on the line of this question about courses. I spoke briefly that a lot of courses aren't necessarily available at a distance, that there's only a limited number. Can you talk a little bit, Dax, about what you've taken at a distance and then what you intend to take when you come actually to campus and how that's balanced for you?
Yeah, so this is my first semester as a master's student. So the only course I've took before this fall was the core class, and that was obviously all remote, or mostly remote besides the on-site timing. This fall, I'm in tech road mapping with Ollie, and it's been a fantastic class. Really learning how to apply a quantitative approach to building out a tech roadmap for different emergent technologies. And based on what I do, I'm really excited about that, both in this role and future roles. For when I come on site next fall, I am trying to cross-register at Harvard, and I'm trying to drink some of that fire hose that Rita talked about. So it's just really going to be a matter of schedule compatibility, aligning with my interests and seeing what falls, because some classes are only offered in the spring, some classes are only offered in the fall.
Thanks, Dax. Ben, is there anything you want to add before we jump to the next question?
In regards to the courses available, I've just been super happy with the breadth that I've been receiving in the courses outside the core. I'm taking one class in digital integrated circuits and another course in managerial finance, so business and School of Engineering, and it's really been fun to find a lot of synergies between those courses and also the core class, and how I can take ideas from one class and use them in another to enhance the learning experience.
Thanks, Ben. Joseph, you raised your hand. If you don't mind unmuting and asking your question.
Hi, sure. Yeah, thanks again, Director Rubin, staff, and students for putting this together. It's extremely helpful. I had a conversation with a MIT LGO alum recently who graduated about 15 years ago. And he said that there was not any direct collaboration between the programs, Leaders for Global Operations and System Design and Management, but that the students shared spaces and were able to connect that way. Is that still the case today?
So I'll give you a little bit more background. I came through MIT and I did my grad work in the very early 90s. It was before SDM existed. And so I was a LGO graduate before I went into my career and then came back about 15 years ago. So I do exposure both. Our students do share space. It means that they are co-located and in the same area. There is an overlap in classes that our students take and that they take. There has been some efforts to do a couple of social events together. So our students overlap and interact, but there isn't any formal connection between the two programs. Rita and Ben, you're here on campus. How much do you interact and overlap with the students when you're with the LGO side of things?
Okay, I can go first.
Yeah.
In terms of interacting with them, like, other students, it's really fantastic. We share a student lounge and we have that opportunity to just get to know each other. Definitely talk about your challenges as a student. And there's a chance you can get to see them in some of the management classes. But if we're talking in terms of interaction, like, do we have a class that is just SDM and LGO? We don't have that at the moment, but we do get to interact with them as fellow students. We're really close because of, the proximity between the two programs.
One of the things that we've done in the structure of the lounge, and we've tried to make it a home base for students. And so it's a place that there are lockers, there's a kitchen, there's breakout rooms, there's study stations. And so it becomes the home base where students, when they come to campus, it's not that they come to class and then they go back to their house or dorm. Most of the time they'll stop and they'll be within that lounge area. And so that's where the overlap and the interaction happens. Ben, I don't know, in a couple months, have you had a chance to interact much?
I have actually. I had a pretty unique interaction. Saw another student in the lounge, and just I've seen you before. It turned out we had been an exchange student at my university for undergrad for a semester overlap. So kind of unique connection there. But it's been really great, the opportunities to connect and network with the LGO students of all the MBA cohort. They are the most technical and probably have, I think, the most shared as a group with the SDM. So I found a lot of common ground when I've been talking with the LGO students.
What I would add to this is SDM and LGO are indeed very different. We have a lot more in common with each other than we had probably with many of the other programs inside of the Institute. It's sibling programs.
And for those who may be listening and going, what in the world is LGO? LGO is Leaders for Global Operations. It is similar to SDM in that it works with both Sloan and the School of Engineering. The difference is that they are 2 full years and they get 2 full degrees, and their focus is where we focus more on process and design, they focus more on operations. And so a little bit of a difference, but definitely an overlap between the type of student that comes in, and especially, like I said, the strong technical background and the interest in management and leadership. Jacqueline, you've been very patient. Feel free to ask your question.
Wonderful, thank you. This has been great. Thank you so much for answering all the questions and for the talk. My question is on the application. Is there specific components that you weight higher than others? Is it the resume that takes priority because it's a professional program? Is it the background? Is it the essays? I'm just curious from a weighting perspective how you handle it.
There's no rubric that says this one gets 50% weighting and this gets 30% weighting. I would say that the pieces that stand out for us on the admissions side of things when we read is the essay matters. Understanding why this is a fit and why people want to come here as opposed to some of the other programs that MIT offers is important to us. Picking a recommender that knows you. They don't need to, there's generic recommendations that say, so-and-so was in my class, they did well, they got an A. Doesn't really speak to the type of work that you do. Having a recommender that can say, I worked on this project with them, they were able to contribute this. This is the type of depth that they'll dig in a problem really will stand out. Because our students are older, we do on occasion get students whose undergrad transcript may not be as strong. That's okay, as long as, and what I would say is if you have a point on a transcript that you say, ugh, I don't know how this is going to fly at MIT, the piece that I would say is add an extra note, and we have opportunities to do that. Help us understand a little bit why. I know we've had situations where people may have been taking care of family at home. There may have been outside things. They may have been playing a D1 sport that really was a tremendous commitment, and having us help understand that. And then the other piece is if there really is some questions in terms of your background. We do not require standardized tests, but that's a place, if you've got grades that may be borderline, a standardized test is a way for us to say, yeah, I understand that at 18, maybe they didn't have the focus for grad school or for academics, but well, it's clear that they've got the aptitude. And so those are the things that I would recommend. But essay and hearing the voice from people who know you.
Great, thank you.
Joan, and also about the recommenders, they do have
Yes.
a form filled with questions that they can use as a guide to write the recommendation letter. So it's not just genetic or standard recommendation letter, or they can actually fill out that form and just answer the questions we have.
And sometimes it's a little bit hard harnessing a recommender, and so yes, there are options there for recommenders. We are at 6 o'clock. I'm happy to hang around a little bit longer and continue to answer questions if they're there. I want to thank our students. I know that this is in the beginning of crunch time as we get towards the Thanksgiving holiday, and there's a lot on their plate. And so I really want to say, Rita, Dax, Ben, thank you so much for taking your time today. To the prospective students out there, we don't prep them. We just ask them to be honest with their input, and hopefully it makes a difference just in terms of hearing their voice for what they've got. But I'm going to kind of shut it down now, but happy to hang for a few minutes extra if there are additional questions. Drop them on the chat or just jump on. I'm happy to help.